Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 15 of the Press Box in association with the unit. It's Episode 15 and Dundalk are onto their third manager of the season, meaning we're averaging one every 5 shows at the moment. So this week we'll reflect on Jon Daly's appointment, his first game in charge against Galway Utd last Friday, which sadly resulted in a 2-0 defeat, and the challenge ahead in trying to keep this club in the Premier Division. We're also going to field your questions and preview our special show next week from the unit's offices in Quayside Business Park, as well as this week's doubleheader at home to Derry City on Friday and away to Pats on Monday evening. But first, I think, to be fair to the club, Jon Daly came out very randomly. I think everybody was on about the Barraclough connection and God knows who else with the rumours going around this town. But I suppose from your point of view, Jon Daly seems a really solid appointment. I said to you just kind of before we got on, I think if you're picking a manager that's going to come in, I know, as I said, he was just released by Pats, but again, he was released by Pats with a 50% win record and an FAI Cup. So like, and I think he even released, I was talking to somebody today saying that he was expected to go win a league, whereas now it's kind of, I think Kenny is expected to go build things and stuff, and he's kind of thinking, it's interesting. So I think Daly could be potentially a great appointment. I know you were up chatting to him as well this week. So what's your general view on, I suppose, since the news came out on Thursday, and then actually the general Jon Daly appointment?
Yeah, good. Like, look, as I said on last week's show, I didn't overly look into it. Last week, it just things going on or whatever, and it takes so much bloody time or whatever. I think most people had bought into the Barraclough rumours, and in some respects, you can see the appeal of Barraclough, but it's it's also 10 years since he managed in the league. We're getting a manager who was 16 days out of work. I think my boss is going on holidays next week for 3 weeks. Like, in theory, that's a longer break than Jon Daly had out of the game. So he knows, we're playing obviously Derry on Friday night. If he doesn't know Pats or something wrong on Monday, Shell's the following Friday. A tough run of games, but he knows everyone. He's come up against everyone. He's played against every team in the league this season. So it's not someone sort of maybe learning on the job, which you might have had a little bit in terms of if it was someone like Barraclough or elsewise. Just on the process, probably, as I said, didn't overly look into this, but kind of got word, and you actually would have messaged me last week, actually, because I wasn't chasing it, that it probably wasn't going to be Barraclough before it broke, and news sort of kind of was coming through around maybe 4:30, 5 that they'd spoken to Daly, and I think Barraclough was certainly on the agenda. Didn't happen for whatever reason. I think that maybe he's looking at other things. There was a couple other names mentioned. I think Liam Buckley and Paul Doolan's name were sort of thrown in the hat without ever really being considered. I think Mark Kennedy was a consideration. Stephen Baxter, I think, was a consideration. People like maybe Gary Cronin. And again, with all due respect to all of those, I think Daly was the best of the options. And maybe the reason, I know he wasn't a name massively linked to the role, maybe particularly when we were sort of weighing up options last week or whatever, but it had been so fresh in terms of him losing his position at Pats. It's very rare. I remember when Declan Devine left Bowes and was quickly back and work up north. That's not common that happens. I don't think he expected much to happen in that. It's well documented at this stage. He had a family holiday booked to go to Turkey this Thursday. So he wasn't expecting to throw himself back into it. Sometimes when you lose your job like that, you particularly in football, people like to take a bit of a time out and maybe reflect and a bit of downtime. He has lived away from his family, who's still based in Scotland, where obviously he was largely based for his playing career. So he probably saw himself, spending a bit of time with them because he'd been away from them for the guts of 3.5 years. But an opportunity came up, he took it, and I think we've got a good man at the helm in terms of, I wouldn't judge him on, we'll talk about it later, I wouldn't judge him too much on the game in Galway on Friday. But I believe the general reaction to him from the players this week in training has been pretty good from what I hear. He's putting good structures in place, he's calm. As you mentioned, I went up to speak to him on Monday. I think he's very level-headed, and and this is something that's badly needed. I think it'll kind of settle things down. I don't think he's someone who will be, you know, all over the place in terms of their media interviews or anything like that. Not saying Stephen O'Donnell was or anything, but there's just been a lot of noise around the club. I don't even like that word, but it's probably the nice way to put it. Some people call it a circus, whatever. And I think it just, gets us back focusing on the football now that we have this appointment in place.
Yeah, and it is. There is definitely. I still think we're very much up against it. Don't get me wrong, but I think we were all expecting the Barraclough appointment, and I think, to be fair, as you said, maybe that still could have been a good appointment. But I got a real sense of, oh, that's out of the blue. And kind of when, it was funny. You reference me getting on to you just about the Barraclough thing, but kind of when I found out that it wasn't going to be Barraclough, there was like a gutting, and I was like, oh my Christ, like this could be as you say, a Buckley or like a lunatic, or going on but like a lunatic. No, that's the wrong word.
Just want to clarify that Buckley and Doolan are not
sorry, that's
lunatics.
nothing to do with them. Yeah, but like a random guy. Sorry, I meant to say, but like, and then all of a sudden to get that notification from Dundalk that it's Jon Daly, I was just thinking, wow, like what an appointment. So and to be honest, if you ask me and probably every other Dundalk fan, I think if we do, the reason why we will go down is because we won't score enough. And this man is a underage Ireland striker that has played, as you said, across the water for years. So if anybody can potentially help with Jamie Gullen or anyone else, or this team generally score goals, in theory, it's this man. So like, it kind of all suits, in my opinion. And I have to say, I was at the Heineken Cup final on Saturday, so I was nowhere near DC Park. Didn't see any of it. Not gonna even reference anything because I didn't see. But we lost. Wasn't nothing to do with him. He was there on the Thursday. So again, I know you can potentially talk about the game, but in him, who cares? We move on. I think, to be fair, Derry is and Pat's Derry and Pat's, isn't it? Like they're his kind of first games, and again, the huge benefit is like, who do you think is able to prepare for us playing Pats more than anybody right now? Him. Who can we tactically outwit? I think it's a really good appointment. I have to say kudos to the club. That was, for all the million things that everything was going around. I like not once was that in any WhatsApp group or any messing and stuff. So I have to say they did their business tidily, privately, and from my side, it's an exciting appointment. I know he didn't say to you on the interview if he's staying for 1 or 10 years. He just said, I'll be here next year. So whatever it is, but I think it seems to be a relatively like long-term-ish minimum, let's say 18-month deal. So he has time to build. Even if we do go down, he can kind of get that opportunity to bring us back if in a worst case scenario. But I think he has a lot of work to do. We can't kind of get away from that. But yeah, for me, I have to say, seeing that notification, I was gobsmacked in a really positive way. For the first time in a long time with this club, I was like, Jesus, this is a great appointment, or potentially a great appointment. We'll see kind of what happens. But again, yeah, a man about the league, kind of as I said, really, in my opinion, if you have an over 50% win rate as a manager, you're doing well, and a cup as well, and all in the last year. Really like it, really like it. And again, would have came from assistant manager Pat as well. So is that 3 years in the League of Ireland as well. So would know a lot about different clubs. So as you said, he kind of he's already has the ball rolling, and yeah, really, really exciting, really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like you referenced Jamie Gullen there, and he mentioned him at his press conference the other day. So, like in a previous life, he was the Hearts under-20 manager, and Gullen was playing for Hibs at the time, and Hibs under-20s to be specific. And he made the point he just felt like he always scored against them, so he quite rates them and stuff. And sometimes, I'm not saying Stephen O'Donnell didn't. He obviously signed him, but sometimes a manager having that belief in you, and like he was a striker himself, he can give him little pointers here and there. Sometimes that can be the key to maybe unlocking something. To be fair to Gullen, and I know there's questions marks about the strikers from some people, like the service is a factor too. But what I like about the Daly appointment is he sort of done this last year to an extent. So, like, if you just look back there, like when Tim Clancy left Pats last May, they had played 13, won 5, drew 2, and lost 6. So that's a 17-point total. Only scored 18 and conceded 20. They were sat 7th at the table. Once he left and Daly came in, they played 23, won 14, drew 3, and lost 6. 2 of those defeats only came in the last 2 games of the season. I know they lost to, ironically, Derry 3-0 on the final day, but they were basically resting players for the cup final, which was well justified. They scored 41 goals, so like their in terms of their scoring power was massively, massively up, and only conceded 22. So, you know, they tighten things up as well. And that's sort of what he has to do here. Took 45 points from those 23 games. I think at one point or another towards the end of the season, there was I remember seeing a table, you know, the league table since Jon Daly took over, and Pats were top of it. So he was able to turn that around now. Look, albeit we're maybe in a slightly different predicament, but he just needs to sort of, you know, I did say last week, and listen, I will talk about the Galway game briefly. I know you're not going to, but it was very disappointing. But in the sense that I did say last week, we're almost Jekyll and Hyde in terms of our home and away performances. So it nearly doesn't shock me when we put in a display like that. Now, obviously, you can't write off your away matches, and he does need to try and turn that around. But that's been a problem for a while. But our home form has been good. So if he can lift that and keep going, like even this Friday, it would be, if we keep a shutout against Derry, it would be a new league record for most consecutive clean sheets in the club's history at home. There was 9 in 1986, but 4 of them were in League Cup matches. So, you know, this team, for all the negative publicity they've had, they could actually set a positive club record this week, just by keeping a shutout against Derry. That's neither here nor there. But look, he, as I say, he does know the league, and look, he said himself on Friday, and maybe it's an easy thing to say, that he wouldn't be here if he didn't think he could keep Dundalk up. But I do think, you know, and I said it to myself, like, if this is irretrievable and Dundalk are just doomed for the drop or whatever, I think he's a good man to sort of, you know, steady the ship next year and try and get us back at the first attempt. I know no one wants that. We're not writing it off yet, but you sort of have to, you know, cater for all problems. Like you mentioned there, but the 3 managers, I think 1978 was known as the year the 3 popes, and I think 2024 will be known as the year the 3 managers in Oriel. But hopefully it stops at that, because we don't want the 4th or 5th or whatever before the year's out. So, look, I think he's steady. I like the fact as well that he's going to live locally. I spoke last week about someone sort of buying into it, and, you know, being that sort of face of the club, and you know, being present and all that. And you know, he's obviously making a huge sacrifice. His family are back in Scotland, so he is, when he's here, he's just living, breathing Dundalk FC, and I think that can only be good for the club off the field as well as on it. So, yeah, I think it's an overall very welcome appointment, and I would imagine he'll get a very good reception on Friday.
Right. Well, before we do kind of have a quick chat about the 2-0 defeat in Eamon DC Park, there's a number of questions that we had from listeners this week. And as always, they're brought to you by Malone Financial and Services, where Fintan Kieran here says, what are the options on getting in new players, or at the very best, keeping those that are here on loan? Do we have any idea of the financial situation now of the club? And thanks, lads. Enjoyed the show. It's a great way to feel in touch with the club from abroad.
So look, he obviously he's not going to go into the minutiae of budgets with us in terms of finances, but he has, he wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't ask, as part of his negotiations with Brian Ainscough, is there money there, or is there the possibility of bringing in players in July? He says there is. Look, he did say that may require players to go out. There probably is a need for a bit of toing and froing within the squad. I think look, that's going to be easier said than done, from the perspective that, can you attract, say, someone to a team bottom of the league? He referenced himself. He was asked about, and I know John Flanagan asked about updates on the loans as well. He did reference himself. He was asked specifically about the two Zacks, Johnson and Bradshaw. And in relation to Bradshaw, he said he had dealings with Lincoln last summer, where he tried to sign Freddie Draper, and they weren't that interested. He said, like, he knows in Lincoln's case they value the first half of the season, because there's so many matches, and then the player can go back, have a bit of break, and straight back into pre-season to maybe try and break through to his parent club. Whereas, when you go into the second half of the season, there's, like, I'm just looking from July 1st. Well, our first game back in July is actually the 4th of July, away to Rovers and Tala. There's only 14 matches to be played between then and the end of the season, which is November 1st, away to Drogheda. Now, there's potential for further games depending on your progress in the Cup, and even a playoff perhaps in Dundalk's case. But it's not as many games this side of it. And then the downside of it from a UK club's perspective is, you send a player over here, but they can't play then till January. So they're kind of scratching for the whole of November and December, which are traditionally very busy months in the UK. So that is the sort of where we are in terms of it's going to. I do think it's going to be hard to add, but he's already been, as far as I'm aware, making moves. I think he's looking at all options, like in terms of all positions. It won't be easy, just as I say, given our position, given facilities, given, like, even if you did get a couple of players in from the UK, they're kind of in pre-season mode at the moment. So how long does it take them to get up to speed? So there's all that to factor in, and it's not easy. But I think there is a bit of investment coming in. I think that will help in terms of, the money will potentially be there to add, but you have to be realistic about it too. As it stands, you wouldn't be surprised if we lost both of the Zacks, Johnson and Bradshaw. Now, he did say it wouldn't be for the worth of trying to keep hold of them, because you're in a bad enough predicament without losing some of your good players. But again, it's probably much too soon to sort of say how our window will go. But the realist hat on me, it's not going to be easy, I wouldn't think.
Simon Canning has a bit of an essay with about 10 different points, I think, in it. So, because he's happy with the Daly appointment, he knows the league and did very well with Pats last year. I'm not really bothered. I'm not really that bothered with Kenny. Don't think he'll have the same success he had with Dundalk. Hoban will be a different set of emotions, especially if he scores, which he probably will. Has a striker from any other team in the Premier or First Division failed to score from play at this stage of the season? Would we be better off throwing on Ryan O'Kane or Durant up front and pinging balls into either of them to run after? O'Kane's a good striker of the ball. Also, will we ever score from a corner? And is heading the ball that hard for 6 foot something professional athletes? Also, is there any word on Benson or Mountney's injuries?
Yeah, a lot to go through there. On the failing to score at this stage, like, look, there are strikers in the league who've yet to hit the net. I suppose you're probably it's a much are involved. Like, so, for example, Shelburne are top of the table. Dean Williams hasn't scored yet this season, but he's only played 187 minutes in the league, so it's not a huge number. It's probably inclusive of added times, just two matches, in total. But look, it is something we need to improve on. I think, to go to his last point about the corners, I think the delivery needs to improve. It's not like, yeah, look, I'm not taking all the slack off the strikers. Maybe their movement needs to be a little bit better, etc. But it's not like we're getting good balls into them, and certainly on set pieces like Galway, Galway are kind of similar to us, as I pointed out last week. That that they don't score a lot. They'd only scored three themselves at home. Before last week, like ourselves, and they'd only actually scored one in their last six. But two corners the other night, and that was the difference between winning the game and drawing the game for them. Like, you almost feel like, is it worth, getting I don't know, a Darren Meenan back out of retirement, just saying, listen, I just want you to stand there, put up ping balls in and take corners. I'm not serious about that, obviously, but like, it is something that needs to be worked on. Again, if you're identifying transfer targets, can you get someone with decent dead ball delivery? Because it's so important. In relation to trying others up front, the likes of O'Kane or Durant, something in the short term, and look, again, I'll go into it in more detail. I thought our best bit of play in Galway, for example, he made a change at half time where he put Cameron Elliott up top with Gullen, and albeit without threatening Brendan Clark, it was our best passage play, and there was some good link up play in that. I think bit of short term thinking here, and look, it's a gamble, but what have we got to lose? Our two matches this weekend are Derry and Pats. I'd throw Owen Kenny in alongside Gullen, and the reason I say that is, look, he's as good as a local lad, but he's Derry born, and he's playing against his dad's team on Monday. If that doesn't fire you up for a game, I don't know what will. So, look, maybe he's not ready for it, I don't know, but he's been getting minutes, including on Friday off the bench. Let's see what he's made of. And like I say, if he can't get up for, a team that's almost in his blood because his dad was managed there, he's, born in Derry, so many connections to Derry. And like I say, playing against your dad. And it's something, a bit of a curveball for Stephen as well, to say, you know, you're plotting against your son effectively, when you're managing. So it just adds a little bit of a curveball. I think, he's been getting more and more minutes, but it's kind of 10 minutes here and 15 minutes there. And in a lot of cases, when a game's like the other day, Galway got their second goal with about 20 minutes to play, and it was as good as over. Same in you go back to the previous away match in Waterford, Chrissy Pattison scores their third 5-6 minutes into the second half, it's over. So, throwing a player in at that stage, you're not seeing the best from no matter who it is. So, why not give him a run from the start and see what he's made of? And as I say, just given the two opponents, tell him he's got the two matches, have a go, see what he's made of. Because what have you got to do? And I think with a Gullen up there, because to be fair to Gullen, and I know he'd take a bit of criticism for the not scoring from play, but his work ethic is good. He's putting it in other ways. So, Kenny's got a bit of legs about him too. And, maybe a Mark Conley or a Shane McElhenney or someone who's, at the other stage of their career mightn't like that, so just something to try.
The two lads' injuries?
There was actually no word. I did ask John on Monday, but to be fair, fairly hectic day. He said he hadn't had a medical update yet. He was obviously doing a lot of press, photo shoots, etc. So I don't have an injury update because I was hoping to find out about a few others as well. Like obviously we're missing, as well as Benson and Mountney, we're also missing Robbie Mahan, Kuhn Oostenbrink. I think Dara Keane will be another couple of weeks. I think he'd be a big one when we get him back. But look, you'd hope to have Benson and Mountney back as soon as possible. They add a bit of leadership and quality and experience and all that. So I don't have actually an update on that. And John himself didn't know, or at least he told me he didn't know on Monday when I asked.
I think, in fairness, Rory Gilson replied to Simon saying, in fairness to Gullen, it's not like he's been missing sitters, spent 90 minutes working like a dog, chasing lost causes. So I think, to be fair, you made that point as well. Aaron McGrory said, thoughts on this image, which is, for people not watching, actually, we don't have it on YouTube either, but it's the picture of Sloggett on the back of the jersey, Jon Daly's one. Zoom into the jersey and you can see Sloggett's name on the back. Is there any news on a possible return? I was also speaking to him at the draw of the game and asked him about coming back. He said, we will have to see what happens.
Yeah, my understanding of that is it's a jersey that was done at the start of the year, kind of. There was obviously a willy won't he move to the UK sort of thing. I don't think there's anything imminent there. Greg had obviously registered and played very briefly for Cheltenham Town, so he couldn't play till well, as I said, 1st of July, 4th of July against Shamrock Rovers anyway. So that's still well over a month away. To the best of my knowledge, Greg was on holidays last week, with his girlfriend Chloe Mustaki abroad. So, I don't think it's something that's imminent. Obviously, he'll always be linked to Dundalk because of his association. He only lives up the road in Gormanston, but one of the reasons, or perhaps the main reason he left it to begin with, was because Chloe, who's playing her football in the UK, wanted to be close to her, wanted to be on a similar sort of schedule in terms of when their breaks are in the season. So uh, maybe, look, beggars can't be choosers. If there's no options in the UK, maybe he has to look back here. But if he does, there's no guarantee necessarily comes to us. He might have an association here. He might have a bit of love for here, which he obviously showed by going to that draw at the game. But again, if another club offers you €100 a week more, where are you going? So, look, I obviously got sent that quite a bit today. I don't think there's anything in it at the moment, but obviously we are in need of recruits. As been mentioned previously, we're certainly going to be down one midfielder, probably with Scott High going back to Huddersfield. So, Greg is a guy who sort of knows the League of Ireland, knows Dundalk, etc. So he fits the bill in many ways. But yeah, I think it's too soon to say that. And I doubt Greg has made any mind up on his decision yet either.
Right, so that'll move us quickly onto the Galway game. So, as I said, despite all the highs of kind of beating Rovers last week, you were up in Galway and kind of, again, we're going to do it very quickly because I'm sure it's been reviewed and people have read about it in papers and stuff. But, a Ross Monroe own goal and a Maurice Nugent header kind of saw Caulfield's side beat us 2-0 and kind of put us back to square one in that sense on a results basis, because we got a bit of luck with Waterford beating Drogheda the day before. So I suppose a quick synopsis, I don't know, from chatting to you, you just said we kind of just weren't at it, like, again, and I think there's an element of not creating chances again, and yeah, stupid goals. I seen the Monroe goal as well, and that's unacceptable. I don't care about that. Keeper should be dealing with that. But I suppose if you can give a synopsis of the general gist of what you saw away in Galway.
Yeah, I'm not going to dwell too long on this because it'd be some penance if you had to watch it back, I'd say. But look, in many ways, the story of the night was Jon Daly being on the sideline, in the first place, because I think when he was obviously announced the evening before and was sort of told, it was in the press release, he would have a watching brief. But I think when he got to the hotel, he flew in from Scotland that morning, drove across to Galway, met the team around 4 o'clock. And I think with Liam Byrne suspended and that, he maybe said, right, look, what am I waiting for here? Straight in. And obviously the team had been picked and selected. It was very similar, obviously, to the one which beat Rovers, but I didn't think it worked. We'd an early header over from John Mountney, but outside of that, we didn't register a shot on goal at any point. But like I would definitely say Galway deserved a win, but you just look at the nature of the two goals, like keeper flapping one into the net, and obviously a free header from a corner, like two set pieces, and that's what we're not doing well at the moment. That when you're not maybe at your best, you just have to produce sort of two moments, or there's a mistake or something, and you can get something out of it. We're not doing that. Galway are doing it very, very well. We didn't really lay a glove on them. What I would say as a sort of positive was that, I didn't think the formation from the previous week worked, and Jon Daly alluded that to himself afterwards when he said it's horses for courses. Worked very well last week, didn't this week, and he wasn't afraid to switch it up. Hooked Mayo and Amasahoon at half time, put Cameron Elliott on, and we were, again, without troubling Brendan Clark, we were getting on top of them. We were the better team for from basically the start of the second half, and then you just give away a nothing goal, free header, really, really poor, and it's game over. But what I would say, it was probably a good lesson for him as well, because in many ways it was a sort of microcosm of our season to date, in terms of like the problems are there, showing good little moments. Again, not the first time we've gone somewhere and not had a shot on target. Very little threat, and probably conceding goals that, like, the goals are a killer, really, because you don't mind if someone produces a worldie and it's a screamer to the top corner, or you're picked apart with a brilliant passing move or something. You'll say, fair enough, better quality, better team, whatever. But when you're conceding goals like that, and it's not the first time it's happened, it's hard to take. But he got a first look at it himself on Friday night. So sometimes you have to, like, I'm sure he looks at tapes, and he would have, like, look, he was only mentioned in the league a few weeks earlier. He would have seen Dundalk up close himself, to play them twice this season. But he got a front and center view of what the problems were on Friday, and at least now he can go in this week, try rectify it for maybe not even Derry on Friday, because, to be fair, our home form in terms of, certainly in terms of not being sloppy, hasn't been bad, but certainly that away form definitely needs to improve.
Right. So before we do look at other matters, let's hear from our sponsors, The Unit.
Today's episode is powered by The Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, The Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right, it's a busy weekend now for Dundalk, with games against Derry City now at home on Friday, and then we're away to Pats on Monday. The latter now is actually kicking off at 5:15 at Richmond Park, because it's now changed to go on TV, so it's going to be on Virgin Media on Monday. So the two games are going to see Dundalk come against a few former heroes for the first time, with Hoban and Daniel Kelly even returning to Oriel Park with Derry for the first time, and then Jon Daly is going to make a rapid return to Richmond Park to go head to head with our one and only Stephen Kenny. So two big games from him. I know we kind of touched on both of them, both the teams, and what we could potentially do. And I know you're probably right to say about Owen Kenny and stuff for Jon Daly to go with, but form and stuff is a funny thing. Kenny obviously hasn't got off to a great start, but like potentially unlucky in both. And maybe it shows you where the league is at. Derry City, again, up and down form wise, still potentially second in the league. I could be wrong. So they're still up
second.
But what I would say is, like, you put a gun to my head now and said, "Here's Derry and Pats. Give me predictions." I'm so past that. I'm like, I honestly, we could, as I say now every week, we could lose both, we could win both, we could draw one, win one, lose. Like, I have no idea. But for Jon Daly, this is the start. So now we get to see Jon Daly's potential team. Will take time, but I think we will see his patterns of play, the kind of maybe his teams that he likes to go with, how he wants to play. The set pieces we talked about, will that be worked on? Things like that. So I think it's a big week for him. They're two tough fixtures to start. As I said, the Galway one's kind of wiped off. It's not him. And I suppose this is really it for us. And on a positive, I think if we can get 4 points for argument's sake, I think yes, where we are. However, I think if he comes and he actually ends up with 1 point of 6, you're kind of thinking, oh, Jesus, John, you really are up against it here. So it can go either way. But again, not in a million years am I going to sit here and give you any sort of predictions, because I haven't a breeze how we're going to play.
Yeah, look, it's actually quite a weekend of football. Like when you factor in the Hoban angle and the Kenny angle to Monday. Obviously Daly going back to Richmond as well. I think in relation to the Hoban thing, it's probably not as maybe incendiary as if Stephen O'Donnell was still at the helm, but still it'd be interesting to see what sort of reaction he gets. He's still the top scorer in the league with 9 goals, one ahead of Aaron Green and Padraig Gammon, but he's actually without a goal in his last 5 since scoring in the 2-0 win away to Waterford on April 26th. And he's only actually scored twice this season away from the Brandywell. Derry, I don't know, they're flattered to deceive a little bit. You look at their form, and in theory, it's just one defeat in the last 8. That was a 1-0 loss away to Rovers on May the 20th, a game Hoban actually missed. But you look at too many poor results. They were probably lucky to scrape a 2-2 draw at home to Sligo last Friday. So I don't know. Again, if this was in the Brandywell, it's a different story. We're a different sort of beast in Oriel. They traditionally don't have a great record coming up here. So yeah, look, I think in both games, if you can get the first goal, it'd be interesting. I don't think we can be chasing too much. Like even Pat's, like Stephen there is obviously without a win in his first 3. He could have it by Monday. They obviously play Friday, but it's a tricky one as well. Galway coming to town, so
And also
that's
for
not
him, by the way, like, just having a quick look at the table, like, I was with Europe in mind. They're 2 games ahead of everybody in regarding Sligo,
yeah.
Drogheda, and us. And like, Sligo are a point behind, Drogheda are 5 behind, and we're 7 behind or 8 behind. And we've all 2 games in hand. We're playing them, and like, bad results for them bring Stephen right into it. And it can be really interesting kind of few days for kind of our former manager as well. And if we can get kind of one over him as well, and it really, really could bring Pats into it. So that's actually really interesting. I didn't think they were as close with the additional games played now.
Yeah, like so, like I, I kind of hope they don't. But if Drogheda win their 2 games in hand over them, they leapfrog Pats. With the same number of games played. So that's where they're at now. Again, easier said than done. But like ironically, Pat's opponents after us is Drogheda in Weavers Park. So like anything, it's like, we said it a bit like at the start of this season when we were waiting for our first win. The longer it goes, like is our season a lot different if we hold on to that 1-0 lead we had in Tal on the opening night? Who knows? You'd want a crystal ball for that one, or a time machine or something. But yeah, I just think the longer you wait for that first win, the harder it almost becomes. And the expect, like, if they don't beat Galway, say on Friday, and we go 1-0 up, Pats fans aren't happy in Richmond. I know it's very early, and they're probably happy with the appointment overall, and I'm not saying to take their ire out on Stephen Kenny necessarily, but it probably will come down on the players. Um, this is a team who won a cup. I know it's been a few ins and outs, etc., but like, they were cup winners not that long ago under Jon Daly. 5 wins from 19, 9 defeats They've the same number of defeats as Dundalk with two games more played. So it hasn't been a good start to the season for them, and I know Jon Daly paid the price for that, but it hasn't picked up under Stephen as yet either. Now they were probably unlucky, maybe a couple of late goals in games or whatever, but that's the way luck goes sometimes when it's against you. So look, you can't overly focus on that before Friday, but it would be interesting, like to go there and somehow get a lead against them. But and I think we need to get the lead because I don't know whether it's confidence is fragile or whatever, but yeah, there's just a lack of belief I feel in us at the moment that if we go behind, can we get back into games? And maybe Jon Daly changes that. I know this week one of the questions he was asked, just because we didn't touch on it, was about his backroom team. He is looking to bring people in, and he said he's not going to rush it for the sake of bringing someone in. He feels there needs to be someone that's going to add what he wants and be the right character around the place, etc. But if he can get, say, a new goalkeeping coach in, a new assistant in, maybe they help lift things as well. So, like, I don't know how quickly they'll happen. We're recording this Tuesday night. For all we know, there could be someone in place by the weekend. There might be someone in place this time 4 weeks from now, but it is on the agenda at least, and they could be important additions as well.
A few kind of things happening within the club as well before we do kind of let you go. But the club are actually hosting a walk and football initiative for older men aged over 55 every Tuesday from June 11th to July 9th. From 11 a.m. to 12 noon in Oriel Park with tea or coffee afterwards. So a great initiative. And if you kind of want more information or to get involved, you can contact Aoife Burns in the club, and her email is aoife.burns@dundalkfc.com. Also, Robbie Benson got named the 1903's Player of the Month for April. And also the One-Armed Wonder, the Jimmy Hasty story, actually won a Sports Emmy for Outstanding Short Documentary in New York. The director, Richard Millway, and Noah Media Group CEO, John McKenna, were also both there to collect. So a really cool documentary, actually. And the Golf Classic, so it's actually sold out, I see. So all the tee times are sold out. So I know you can give you a rattle about that. But so there's also sponsorships if anybody wants to get involved. So you can kind of sponsor tees or greens as well.
Yeah, I just I'm going to keep this on the agenda because obviously I'm on the committee. But yeah, great to see the support it's got so far. As I say, just you can still get behind it. Sponsor a green, sponsor a tea. Ranges in price from 100 to €200. Promises to be a great day. We'll go into more detail maybe closer to the time in terms of if people want to come up or whatever. I think Jon Daly's going to play in it. I didn't ask him directly himself, but I'm told he's not a bad golfer, and with a name like Jon Daly, why wouldn't he be? So we've a Jon Daly now and a Zach Johnson at the club. So two major champions, well, in name anyway. So no pressure on them for the day if they're around. But yeah, great to see it supported, and yeah, looking forward to a good day on June 20th.
And also, before we go, our underage updates is also in association with Jerry McNamee Consultants, so you can fire on with that.
Yeah, well, look, it was a good day on Saturday for the men's under-20s. They beat Finn Harps 5-2 in Oriel Park to lift themselves off the bottom of the table. Conor O'Gorman did the honey with 2. Sean Keogh and Davin O'Connor got the goals for Mark Griffin's side in what was just their second win in 10 matches this season. Unfortunately, there was less joy in the day for the women's under-17s, who went down 2-0 to Shamrock Rovers in Oriel. The men's under-17s also had a 2-1 loss away to Bray Wanderers on Sunday, conceding an 88-minute goal after Keane Spate had equalised in first half stoppage time. That result leaves Thomas McShane's side second from bottom. Very few matches this weekend. I presume that's because of between the bank holiday weekend and exams and stuff. But this Saturday, the men's under-20s are in action again against Finn Harps, this time away at 2 p.m, while the women's under-17s are away to Shelbourne at the same time.
Right, so before we go, and I know I feel I've said this about 3 times, but just a reminder, we're actually going to be coming live now next week from the unit's offices in Dundalk, our main sponsors, and we're going to be joined by former Dundalk player and academy coach Stephen McDonald. He's now the manager at Glenavon up north, as well as former sporting director Jim Magilton. He's now the manager of Irish Cup winners Cliftonville. In regards to kind of us even talking and briefing listeners and stuff about it, the episode should be out similar time. And as I said, we hope to have the audio out. And guys that watch it on YouTube, the unit are actually going to do some filming and stuff, from clips and stuff of it as well. So as people can imagine, it'll be maybe a bit interesting, especially more so with Jim Magilton and Steve McDonald. We can kind of get into more maybe on academy stuff as well. So it'll be an interesting chat. Yeah, I don't think we I'm not going to say we're all winging it, but we kind of all are. And it'll be really interesting next week. But as I said, for anybody that kind of does, and funny enough, there is quite a few people that if we don't have it out at a certain time to be annoyed, so you'd get a few messages. So it should all be out at the same thing, but same time as normal. But I think we'll have a piece up about if anybody wants to ask, whether it's Steve McDonald or Jim Magilton, any questions for us to ask as well. So I don't know if you have anything else to kind of go on that, but that's as far and as much information as I'm well aware we're doing.
Yeah, again, probably not the best prepared for this, but yeah, I look forward to it actually. It'd be nice to chat with the lads. Potentially a few good interesting stories there. It may end up being a bit of a longer pod just because it's of the live nature, but we'll suss that out next week. And I did look into, I think the unit are managing, there may be limited tickets. So if you know anyone at the unit, I don't think it's in our control at the moment. You may be able to attend on the night. I'm not sure, but we'll work that out. If you keep an eye on our Twitter page or even Instagram or whatever, we'll guess. I'll leave that with you, Craig. You can update it throughout the week, and we will put out, as Craig said, the questions next week. So have a think about what you'd like to ask the lads, and we'll do our best to put it to them next week. So yeah, looking forward to it. Something a bit different, and yeah, roll on next week. But quite a bit of things happening in between with 2 matches.
Perfect. Right. Well, we will see us from the unit offices next week. And again, we want to thank the sponsors of the unit, as well as our associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. And again, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, we're going to thank our sponsors, Mullins on the Castletown Road as well. So it's been quite a week. As you can probably hear in our voices, we've been talking about a lot. So hopefully we're chatting about much more positive things now next week. Thanks a million.
Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars